Ankita Robin and welcome to SG Global News. From the celebration of the feast of Saint Agatha in her hometown of Catania to President Trump's bold yet commonsensical order excluding men from women's sports, we have many stories to cover. The Saint Agatha Festival, one of Italy's most revered religious celebrations, concluded in Catania on February 5th, drawing nearly 1 million pilgrims and participants. For 3 days, the city came alive with grand processions, fireworks, and solemn masses honoring Saint Agatha, the 3rd century martyr who is believed to have miraculously saved Catania from destruction. This year's festivities saw deep community participation, including a symbolic gesture by the mayor and a rare public appearance by cloistered Benedictine nuns, affirming the city's enduring devotion to its patron saint. The Saint Agatha Festival in Catania, Italy, a 3-day event honoring Saint Agatha, the city's patron saint, concluded on February 5th. According to estimates, nearly 1 million people, including pilgrims, participants, and spectators, took part in the festival, which featured elaborate processions, magnificent fireworks, and a solemn Holy Mass at dawn. Saint Agatha was a young aristocratic woman who lived in Sicily in the 3rd century. At the age of 15, she took a vow of chastity, symbolized by a red veil worn by consecrated virgins. A few years later, the Roman prefect Quintianus attempted to court her, but Agatha firmly rejected his advances. Enraged, the prefect subjected her to brutal torture, including the severing of her breasts. She was then imprisoned, where, according to tradition, Saint Peter appeared to her and miraculously healed her wounds. Agatha died in prison in AD 251. A year after her death, in AD 252, Mount Etna erupted, threatening Catania. In their desperation, the panicked residents carried Agatha's veil to the areas affected by the lava flow. Miraculously, the eruption ceased, sparing the city from destruction. Every year, from February 3rd to 5th, the residents of Catania paused their daily activities to honor their patron saint, who, according to legend, saved their city centuries ago. This year, the celebrations began with the procession of the 11 candelor, large candle-shaped wooden structures representing the city's historic guilds. As night fell, devotees walked through the streets holding candles, casting an ethereal glow over the city. On the second day, a solemn Holy Mass was celebrated at the Cathedral of Saint Agatha. Following the Mass, the saint's relics were placed on the furculum, a ceremonial carriage, and carried in a grand procession through the city. The furculum, adorned with red carnations symbolizing her martyrdom, was borne by devoted faithful dressed in traditional white votive garments. A large crowd gathered at Piazza Duomo to witness the procession, which also featured the 18th century Senate carriage. However, in a symbolic gesture, Mayor Enrico Trantino stepped aside to allow local students, recognized for creating impactful videos on environmental awareness, to ride in the carriage. The procession through the outer city lasted through the night, culminating in the early hours of February 5th when the saint's relics were returned to the cathedral. The third and final day of the festival began with a pontifical mass presided over by Cardinal Matteo Maria Zuppi. Later, the statue and relics of Saint Agatha were taken in procession through the inner city. A long-standing tradition was upheld as the cloistered Benedictine nuns of the convent of Saint Benedict came out on February 5th to sing hymns in honor of the saint from behind the gates of their convent courtyard. This is the only time of the year that they step beyond their enclosure. With the return of the saint's statue and relics to the cathedral in the early morning of February 6th, this year's Saint Agatha Festival came to a close. The celebrations reinforced the deep emotional ties among the residents of Catania, who for 3 days set aside their differences to honor the heroic virtue and fortitude of their beloved patroness. Saint Agatha's unwavering faith continues to inspire generations, ensuring that her legacy endures. Joyce Jason, a devoted Catholic mother of 5 from Kerala, fought a courageous battle against cancer for nearly 5 years before passing away on February 3rd in Abu Dhabi. Her funeral, marked by profound faith and unwavering hope, saw her children leading prayers with strength instead of despair. Joyce's life and legacy stand as a testament to Christian joy, resilience, and the power of unwavering trust in God. Joyce Jason, a Catholic mother of 5 from Kerala who bravely fought cancer for nearly 5 years, left for her eternal reward amidst the Hail Marys of her beloved children and husband. Dressed in white, Joyce lay in a beautifully adorned casket surrounded by white roses with a pink floral crown resting on her head. Her face was peaceful, and on her chest was placed her beloved companion, a Bible that had guided her through many trials and through which her Lord had spoken to her. Joycey succumbed to cancer, which had spread to nearly all parts of her body on February 3rd in Abu Dhabi. Her body was brought back to Kerala, where her elder children and an entire community awaited her. They longed for one last glimpse of the saintly woman who had lived passionately for Christ, embracing every cross and suffering with grace and joy. To everyone's surprise, neither her children nor her husband wept in despair. In their resolute faces shone the conviction that Joycey was now in heaven with Jesus. Seated beside their mother's still body, the 5 children led rosaries and prayed the office of the dead. They greeted visitors with gentle nods and smiles. As the sun began to set on the horizon, her body was taken to St. Anthony's Church, Varakara, in the Indian state of Kerala. After a solemn and prayerful service, Joycey was laid to rest. Everyone bid a final farewell to this courageous Catholic mother who had given birth to all 5 of her children via C-section, battled multiple cancers of varying intensity, endured 17 surgeries, and ultimately surrendered herself to God. The funeral was followed by a memorial service where her husband, children, and friends shared heartfelt stories about her. Jason Paulos, Joycey's husband and unwavering pillar of support, said, quote, "I could not build a heaven, so she went to the heaven she dreamed of. That is what I believe," end quote. Julia Rose, the eldest of the 5, shared how her mother always spoke the words Jesus wanted her to say. Joshua, the only son, expressed his desire to marry a woman like his mother and be a husband like his father, believing that failing to do so would make life meaningless. Joanne Maria spoke of a mother who cared deeply for others even in the midst of excruciating pain. As their voices faded, there was not a single dry eye in the audience. Joycey Jason Paulos and their 5 children stand as a testament to Christian hope and joy, a faith that allows one to smile, pray, and sing praises even when all seems lost. The Seminary of the Good Shepherd in Sydney, Australia welcomed 14 first-year students, its largest intake since 2017. This is a hopeful sign as the country has experienced a significant decline in the number of priests in recent years. Archbishop Anthony Fisher OP, who celebrated Mass with the newcomers and their families, reminded the seminarians to trust in God and their formators as they embark on this journey. The Seminary of the Good Shepherd in Sydney, Australia has seen its largest intake of first-year seminarians since 2017. In Homebush, 14 first-year students joined the seminary, bringing the total number of men preparing for the priesthood to 46. Although this may seem like a small number, it is a hopeful sign for a country facing an acute shortage of priests and few vocations. Archbishop Anthony Fisher OP celebrated Mass on January 29 with the newcomers and their families. The Archbishop urged the seminarians to trust God and their formators and to be ready for the great things God would do in them. Father Michael D. Stoop, rector of the Seminary of the Good Shepherd, appreciated the tremendous sacrifices parents had made to bring up their sons. The number of priests in Australia in 2021 was 2,900, a significant drop from 4,500 a decade earlier. With 5.3 million Catholics currently, there is only one diocesan priest per 2,900 Catholics in Australia. In a bid to circumvent the federal order restricting gender transition surgeries on children, New York Attorney General Letitia James assured that hospitals operating in the state will not face any repercussions if they conduct sex change surgeries on minors. James's statement came after a federal order mandated the Department of Health to stop offering research or educational grants to medical institutions that perform sex transition surgeries on children. Democratic lawmakers and officials in New York are implementing laws to protect doctors who perform transgender surgeries and abortions, aiming to bypass the Trump administration's recently issued pro-life directives. State Attorney General Letitia James assured licensed medical institutions in New York that hospitals must continue performing transgender surgeries and abortion procedures despite the Trump administration's directive restricting transgender surgeries and youth access to related drugs. The directive also mandates the Department of Health to stop offering research or educational grants to medical institutions that perform sex transition surgeries on women. James acknowledged the order but affirmed that New York hospitals must comply with state laws. Additionally, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed a law allowing doctors to conceal their identities on prescriptions for abortion pills, providing protection for doctors who prescribe these medications to patients from states where they are illegal. Several states have restricted abortion drugs after the historic overturning of Roe v. Wade in 2022. A Catholic priest was attacked during a prayer service in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. The attacker tackled Father David Gaines before parishioners intervened and subdued him. The congregation prayed for the attacker after he was taken away by the police. A Catholic priest at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Lourdes at Spokane in Washington was attacked during a prayer service on February 4th. The attacker, who was sitting on a front pew, abruptly got up, climbed up the altar, and hit Father David Gaines before tackling him to the floor. Bishop Thomas A. Daly was present when the incident happened. Parishioners immediately stepped in to help Father Gaines and pinned down the attacker. Although Father Gaines was not injured, the attendees were shaken by the unprovoked attack. The attacker, Joshua James Somers, was arrested and charged with assault. He is expected to be taken to court on Thursday. After the police arrested Somers, the congregation paused the service to pray for him. Father Darren Connell, a rector at the church, stated that the church was already spending tens of thousands of dollars a year on fencing, alarms, locks, and security cameras. The church has been the target of many crimes over the years and has even hired a security guard for Sunday masses. Since February 2nd, the church has been hosting 9 days of prayer for those who needed healing, leading up to February 11th, the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, and the World Day of Prayer for the Sick. The Holy Father has declared hope as the theme for the 5th World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly. This special day will be celebrated on the 4th Sunday of July, coinciding with the feast of Saints Joachim and Anne, the grandparents of Jesus.
The US President Donald Trump signed an executive order barring transgender student athletes from participating in and competing in women's sports. The order title, Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports, was signed on Wednesday as part of an effort to protect opportunities for women and girls to compete in safe and fair sports. After signing the order in the East Room of the White House, Trump was surrounded by young female athletes and activists, including former collegiate swimmer Riley Gaines, who has supported the ban.
I want to make this a really good signature because this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10.
Addressing the audience, Trump declared, "The war on women's sports is over." The order grants federal agencies extensive authority to enforce Title IX, the 1972 law that prohibits sex discrimination in federally funded programs. It mandates that entities receiving federal funding must adhere to the Trump administration's interpretation of sex as a gender assigned at birth. Reaffirming his administration's stance, Trump emphasized his commitment to preserving female athletics and preventing what he described as unfair competition. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women, he declared. The president further added that schools violating the order would jeopardize their federal funding.
US President Donald Trump has made his stance clear. Women's sports will be exclusively for women. He has signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from competing in girls' and women's sports.
The Vatican has announced the theme for 5th World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly, which will be held this year on Sunday, July 27. The Holy Father has chosen "Blessed are those who have not lost hope" as a theme for this year. Taken from the book of Sirach, the theme expresses the blessedness of the elderly and highlights hope placed in Lord as a path to a Christian and reconciled old age. In the Holy Year 2025, the World Day aims to provide a moment for reflection on how the presence of grandparents and elderly can serve as a symbol of hope within every family and church community. The Dicastery for the Laity, Family and Life, which organizes the World Day, has invited every diocese to organize local celebrations for the World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly on July 27th, promoting visits and occasions for encounters between generations. Pope Francis instituted the World Day to be celebrated in the church on the 4th Sunday of July, near the feast of the saints Joachim and Anna, Jesus' grandparents. Last year, the Apostolic Penitentiary, the Vatican Court, announced that grandparents, the elderly, and the faithful who attend Mass or other prayer services as part of the day's celebration could receive a plenary indulgence. Additionally, the Vatican stated that the indulgence could apply to those who devote adequate time to actually or virtually visiting their elderly brothers and sisters in need or in difficulty, such as those who are sick, lonely, or disabled.
That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.